We're expecting
Who we're expecting?
both members on. Mr. Zine has another committee at this time, so he will be here shortly.
So can I get going?
Item number 1.
Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor and the City Ethics Commission relative to the appointment of a Miss Esther Cepeda to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2010.
Have you ever served on a city commission before?
Yes, I have. I've served with the Neighborhood Council Review Commission.
Okay, so you know that all the commissioner candidates come before the committee and then go to council for approval. So if you could just give us your 1-minute version of why you're dedicating your life to the city of Los Angeles.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity. As you know, I'm Esther Cepeda, and I have served previously on the Neighborhood Council Review Commission. It was a wonderful opportunity to learn more about serving on a commission primarily, and the neighborhood council system, how it works and how it could improve. I want to bring to Bonk is just my set of ears, my dedication to the neighborhood council system, and to see it grow. I'd love to be a part of the growth with Dunn and other city agencies.
So what do you see as the critical needs of the neighborhood council system?
Primarily, outreach and training are two areas where I think that we need improvement.
Such as?
Well, I think that neighborhood council board members need to be trained, especially incoming new members, and retrained for existing members.
What kind of training?
Bylaw training.
Democracy shouldn't need that much training.
But it does, so everybody can understand how a neighborhood council system should better serve the stakeholders.
So what kind of training are you talking about?
Well, I think that bylaw training primarily, they should be given
Bylaw training?
Yes, on creating the correct set of bylaws to serve their board, and I'd love to see them more on the same page.
What does that mean, more on the same page? With who?
A neighborhood council system as a whole, because I believe there's way too many. Everybody has a different set of bylaws, and I think that they need to come together more.
When you say come together more, what does that mean? What exactly does that mean?
Well, there's so many different sets of bylaws.
We should make one.
Well, I can't say that one particular set is good, because I don't believe that one size fits all, but I think they need to come together more, and that's something where I'd love to try to assist.
It seems to me we spend too much time on the bylaws.
Okay.
That we should be about action, and at least in the beginning, it seemed that the neighborhood councils were spending just an egregious amount of time on the bylaws. So I have said that I think we should provide, as a department, Dunn should provide, thank you, we should provide, I get more articulate the more caffeine I drink. But Bonk should, not Bonk, Dunn should provide a boilerplate design for bylaws, and then the neighborhood council should tailor it to their particular community. The other thing that needs to be very clear is that this is a democracy, and so we encourage individuality. We encourage the neighborhood councils to be distinct and different. I mean, we want the Hollywood Neighborhood Council to be different than the Chatsworth Neighborhood Council. They have very distinctive things to offer to the city as a whole. I think, but across the board, they should reflect respect for each other, and by encouraging another's individual rights, you're also protecting your own. So So I appreciate what you're saying about the training about the bylaws, but I don't want to be inundated with bureaucracy and focused on the bylaws and not getting anything done in the community, not fighting to maintain the DWP rates, for example, not fighting to not maintain, to fight to reduce or to avoid higher rates of increase, which is what I'm using that example because that's what the neighborhood councils have done, with the formation of the MOU, or fighting to protect a neighborhood against sexual predators, as the Sylmar folks did in their neighborhood. Those activities are far more important to me than how much time they spend on the bylaw. So I thought you were going to say things like sexual harassment, how to conduct meetings, parliamentary procedure, in terms of training.
All of those items.
Yeah. Okay. But
Are
when you said
priority.
bylaws, it kind of threw me off.
I think
see.
that they need training in every area that can help them.
Well, again, we don't want to be. Democracy is a you learn by experience, and as a country, as a neighborhood council, you learn by experience. So we're not going to be able to train everything. They just have to live it, and then pass it on. But training is an important thing that is necessary. I think you know what you want to accomplish. I just want you to be careful when you ask the department to do what your heart wants to do. It sometimes doesn't come out the same as what your heart wanted. So we have to be careful with that. You've been a longtime activist in the neighborhood council system, and
Yes, I
so the best thing you bring to Bonk is a commitment to the neighborhood council system, and I applaud you for that. What other things do you see as necessary?
Excuse me?
For example, how do you see? Let me go to a different question. How, as a member of Bonk, how do you see your relationship with the department as opposed to what it was as a member of the neighborhood council system?
Time for growth. Time for growth. I mean, now that Bonk, with the 912 Commission recommendations, there's a change. There's definitely a change. Before, they were all about certification and decertification. Now that that's mostly out of the way, it's time for a new vision, growth.
Okay. What vision and what growth?
Well, I'd love the opportunity to learn from this commission.
I want to know what you want to think. I mean, we're asking you to serve on this commission, not to learn from others, but to teach. So, what do you think we need to? In what areas do we need to grow? And in terms of the relation, I was actually asking about the relationship between the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and Bonk, and your role as a board member.
A partnership that
of
could
Bonk.
be built from this point forward.
Yeah, you speak in very vague terms. A partnership doesn't mean anything to me. Describe the partnership to me. And then what do we need to build?
Well, how they can assist neighborhood councils in a more direct manner.
Who?
Done.
Okay.
And any part of which I can help.
So what would the relationship between Bonk and Dunn be?
Hopefully even improved.
Well, of course we want to improve everything, but what is the relationship? What do you see your role? With regard to Dunn?
I'm sorry, I'm maybe getting a little nervous here.
That's all right.
In my relationship with Don, I haven't had a lot of experience with Don. I've worked, like you say, with the neighborhood councils for five and a half years now, and I've appreciated their support, but I see room for even improvement with the 912 Commission recommendations. So again, I am here to have growth, not just in myself, but to see that.
Okay, the mayor is relying on you to represent the community's interests on Bonk. But what is BONK? I mean, what is the role of BONK in this tripod of a system where we have neighborhood councils, we have the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, and we have BONK? Why do we have BONK? What is the purpose, and why? What
Advisory
role,
and
what role?
policymaking,
Advisory to who and?
advisory to neighborhood councils,
Uh-huh.
advisory to Dunn.
Okay. In fact, of the three, the most difficult, I think, is BONK. In fact, haven't they have trouble convening a quorum?
Yes.
With seven commissioners.
Seven
They need
commissioners,
four
and
to
I
make a
think,
quorum.
how many meetings have, their last three meetings have not produced a quorum? So, and how many members? 7 members? They can't get 4 people in a room? We gotta bonk them. So the first question should be, are you committed to show up to every meeting?
I am dedicated to
Short of
show up
exigent
to every meeting.
circumstances, we need to get you there. But what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to put pressure on you, but I'm trying to get you to be you're an activist, and you've always been proactive. BONK needs a heavy dose of proactivity. On the other hand, they did some good work with the 912 Commission, and sort of behind the scenes in official but yet almost unofficial capacity. They weren't necessarily acting directly as BONK, but they did weigh in at every point, and so they did do some things very well. I'm having difficulty understanding what BONK is myself, because of the fact they don't meet very often, and I really do think it's a great opportunity for the members of BONK to really assert themselves in a more proactive role. On the other hand, I want to segregate the work that they did on the 912 Commission, because the document I don't think would have been as productive without BONK's participation. But now they're moving to a different stage. We've got those improvements in place for the most part. So what is the role of BONK? To me, it seems that you talked about. See, you're sort of dancing around the edges,
Sorry.
like I'm dancing around the edges right now. You're sort of dancing around the edges of what BONK, what the relationship of BONK is and what the responsibilities are. But I want you to hone in on those things, because essentially, you talked about creating a more uniform system of bylaws. Well, who's going to do that if not BONK, which is a convening of people who represent different neighborhood councils? It's bringing so that the harbor area will be in touch with what the valley is doing, and the valley will be in touch with what East Side is doing, and the central LA will be in connected to others as well. So it's a convening of citywide neighborhood council interests so that they can coordinate their function better. Secondly, it's obviously to continue to empower the neighborhood councils. That's a function of BONK. How can we best do that? Thirdly, you mentioned training. The benefits of training should accrue to everybody, but BONK should be in a key position to direct the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment to make sure they're doing their job, number one, to make sure that if there's a commitment that was made or that they've stated they were going to meet some objective, that objective gets met. And if it's not met, BONK should weigh in and let them know. But they should also participate in the implementation. And so those are the kinds of things I see as the role of BONK, but it's yet to be fully defined in my mind. And so I hope that well, I know that if they meet, there's greater chance that they'll find their way to a better definition. But so that's one thing. But there are certain things that they participated in, sort of catch as catch can, like the review commission's work. I don't think that was ever necessarily intended to be their function, but they did it. But we need to solidify how their role fits into this system. I have no doubt that you can be very helpful. First of all, by showing up to the meetings, and secondly, by your pragmatic grassroots activism. Don't lose focus. This is an activist vehicle. It's a vehicle for democracy. It's not a vehicle for bureaucracy. We have to have bureaucracy to function, but it should not be the dominant force. The dominant force should be activism in the community, and that's what the neighborhood council system is about. And I know that that's what your family is about. So I'm not, your family has a long-standing relationship with the city, and I know, and also when I was a senator, I know that your family was very involved in the harbor area and some of the statewide endeavors. So with that, I'm happy to send your recommendation on with my support, and assuming other council members will be here to sign on. Otherwise, we'll just send a letter from me to the council. Do you have any questions?
No, I've got a lot of reading to do. I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate
Okay, thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Take care.
Item number 2 is a motion of Han Weezer relative to requesting the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment to report on reducing the number of posting locations a neighborhood council has to place agendas at in exchange for making their agendas available to the public through the city's early notification system.
I thought on this item, why don't we just require Dunn to post them? What's the big deal? Is there a problem with that? Huh? No, well, Dunn, you said Dunn post them.
But the neighborhood council has to initiate, so there's no requirement now.
Bong Wan Kim, General Manager, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. I think on this motion, it would be useful to explore the intent behind the motion. One perspective one could take is ease of administrative burdens for neighborhood councils, because if you allowed this electronic posting, it would reduce the legwork.
Yeah, come
that
on,
they would have to
they're
take.
posting it at more than 5 locations.
Some are and some aren't.
But what's the big deal with posting the agenda? I mean, can't we just do it?
Yes, but the policy question is whether the electronic posting could substitute for one of the 5 physical.
It's not a
postings.
policy question to me, because we don't have to substitute anything. We just post it. Forget about the 5, forget about 4. They can put it, they're required to put it at 5 locations.
Yes, the Brown
That's
Act
fine.
requires that.
That's fine.
No, that's
I
not.
don't- No, the Brown Act does not require that.
Correction.
But
City Attorney Gwen Poindexter, just to clarify, the department way back when, as with the bonk, had indicated that during the certification process, neighborhood council should provide 5 posting locations so that the stakeholders would know where the meetings are going to be held.
the purpose was to comply with the Brown Act, I'm sure.
Which
but,
only
but it
requires
doesn't. It's
one.
not required by the Brown Act. You can
Correct.
do it in a lot of different ways.
Correct.
But I'm just saying,
But the Brown Act requires currently physical posting still in this day and age. 1 physical posting.
That's right.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that, because there are a lot of communities that don't have access to the web. So, and those are the ones, the disenfranchised communities were the ones we developed a system for. So as a priority, and so I don't have a problem with that. But I'm just saying that why don't we just post all agendas on the web? What's the problem with that?
Well, some neighborhood councils do it. Those neighborhood councils who have websites do post them on their on the web. If we were to do it, it would be another administrative workload issue on the department, because neighborhood councils would have to post their meeting announcements to Dunn, and then we would have to put them on the website. The other way it could be done is if neighborhood councils were required to do it, they could post the agendas on their own. But But again, it would be an administrative issue either for the neighborhood council or for Dunn.
What does it take to do this?
Well, Councilman
Yeah, where are you?
Erickson Hurtko on behalf of the councilwoman who's running a few minutes late. What I gave to you is a copy from ITA of a list of all the neighborhood councils who have posted agendas on the early notification system, the website. I believe it's something like 20. It's a very small number.
Mm-hmm.
The total number of agendas, this was for 2007, was around 500. It's a very small percentage. So this was a staff recommendation that was made in '04, which someone brought up to me and reminded me that this had been made, and it seemed like it made a lot of sense to give them a carrot, give them incentive to comply.
I don't have a problem with the idea of putting them on the web. I'm just asking, what does it take?
It just takes somebody to send an email, and honestly, it's something that should have been done a long time ago, and that's why we're bringing up the issue.
Okay, but we tied the posting to a requirement to
Mm-hmm.
become certified, right?
Correct, and I think the argument was that when the neighborhood councils were first starting, it was very important that people know where their meetings were and when their meetings were. But as they've been around for 5-6 years, people generally know where they meet, and it's a little bit less important now to have 5 postings. A lot of people do use the web now. I mean, it's been several years since we first started the system. Most people have computer access, and for those who don't, there still would be several locations where they could see the
Yeah, for my
physical
part,
agenda.
we can bifurcate the issue of posting physically from the issue of posting on the web, because I don't have a problem with requiring 5 postings. I think we should post, because a lot of people don't have access, and people who don't have computers may stop by the local liquor store, wherever the community joints are, and see it that way. So I want to separate that. The idea of reducing it by 1 was merely to create an incentive. I don't know that it creates an incentive. On the other hand, I think all the agendas should be posted on the web. And by the way, not necessarily for the neighborhood council, but for all the other neighborhood councils that might want to know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
That's
the only counter argument is, as the city attorney mentioned, this is another example of where the city is asking neighborhood councils to do far and above what they asked themselves to do. And we're going to talk about translation in a bit as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that the city asks neighborhood councils to do that we do not ask of ourselves. So I think that there will be a pushback if this is seen as a
We post
mandate
our
without
agendas.
incentive. But we don't require 5 physical locations to be posted. I think that's the distinction. So you can bifurcate the issues, but I think that will come back as an argument against if we try to do it without an incentive. But either way is fine with, I think, in our opinion.
He's not up to your level, that's for sure.
All right, with that, I will pass the baton.
No,
you're doing good. You're
the
doing
question
good.
that I pose is, why don't we just put all the agendas on the web? Why do we have to create an incentive? Why don't we just say all the agendas should go on the web? Boom.
And
What
currently,
did Eric have to say for myself?
currently Dunn's practice is that those neighborhood councils who send their agendas to Dunn, we do post them on the city's website.
I'm sorry, Mr. Esther.
Well, now, all the agendas are kept by the city clerk, correct?
One less physical posting, so a total of 4 instead of
No?
And he said, let's just have them.
There's a requirement that we don't impose on them that we have to live by?
No, the agendas that we post are all the city council agendas and the committee agendas. That's right, the special ad hoc committees of the council. Other agendas are posted through ITA and would most likely go through those departments. So they don't come through our office necessarily.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Paul Smith, CLA. It appears that there are a number of issues that, while this appears to be as a straight, intuitive, good idea to have this posting, especially as the NCs mature, and those early years are over now and they're more stabilized and institutionalized, electronic posting sounds like a great idea. But I think Dunn needs to come back with you with a process that ensures that that is done in a way that makes sure that it's compatible with what we have today, with the system we have today, and that all the NCs know how to do this in a way that makes sense and post it in a timely fashion.
I just think that democracy requires information and
Oh,
communication.
agree.
And it seems to me, unless the city attorney tells me it's prohibitive, that we should require the neighborhood councils to post their agendas on the citywide web. on the city website. I mean, so that everybody can look at them. Is there anything to stop us from doing that?
No, you could do that. You'd have to amend the plan to make that a requirement.
And then
but
what
there's
we could
nothing
do is
unlawful about
if
that.
it's a requirement, then we could, if they're not complying, then we could say, well, okay, you don't meet this criteria, whatever. But I just don't think that, I think the whole idea is to add light to the system.
Right.
If the city attorney is correct, and I'm assuming she is, that we would have to do an amendment to the plan, we would need to bring that back to us. And I would also say, if we're going to amend the plan or forward it to the council, that they amend the plan.
That's the
The
plan
citywide plan, the plan for citywide system neighborhood councils.
that we adopted
That you adopted.
in 2001.
Right.
It has been amended periodically.
I would also suggest that
We
Dunn
have to-
put together
Tell
the
me, why do
guidelines
we-
for
why
its
do we have to amend
implementation.
the plan?
Well, if you want to make it
Plans are
work.
plans. I mean, is it an ordinance that requires us to do it that way?
No, because if you use the words require, so to require neighborhood councils to do anything, we have to have an ordinance or a plan that dictates the rules for them to operate. Otherwise, the city council could ask them to do this, but just by passing a motion wouldn't affect any kind of legal obligation on the part of the neighborhood councils.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable doing that, and obviously until we have a sense. I mean, there's the majority of the neighborhood councils do not post it on the web.
Yeah, it's-
So I'm wondering.
City's web, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wondering why, what's that about?
You need-
And, and I actually might disagree with Mr. Sanjuro in terms of giving them an incentive. I think neighborhood councils are, in other words, I really, that's not as important to me as actually the 5 postings. And I know it's not what we do, but city council really is established. I mean, everyone knows we meet 3 times a week. They know where we meet. The only unique thing we ever do is once a month we go to the valley. But I still think a lot of people in a neighborhood do not know about their neighborhood council. And I think it's actually more grassroots to post it in the Starbucks and the, kind of the local neighborhood type, places. So I don't know. I would, I would rather keep it at the 5 and not require them to post it on the web.
And I would concur with your view that physical postings
Yeah,
are
it's very,
more likely to be viewed as
I
opposed to
agree.
electronic postings.
that's
Again,
what I
they'd be more
think.
likely to be viewed by the neighborhood council.
By the
people
neighborhood,
in the
by the
neighborhood,
Community.
but not necessarily citywide. And
Right, that's
if
what I
we're
think.
talking about learning
Sorry,
from
Eric.
other neighborhood councils, nobody's going to be seeing the other agendas. And besides, how am I going to keep an eye on what's going on in your district if I can't get access to those
I
agendas?
do not want you to know what's going on in my district.
That's what I thought.
If you want to know what's going on in my district, come to the corner store.
I was going to call your guy over here, but that's a different issue. Well, I just don't see the problem with putting these agendas on. To me, it's like
I know this was my motion, but.
no brainer. Why not put these things on the web? I didn't realize it was so complicated. I really don't think it is that complicated.
It's not that complicated, but there's just a process you have to go through to make it
Now I'm
happen.
understanding what you're saying, given the plan and all that.
And
We
it
have.
needs some guidelines, too, to help these guys do this in a way that's timely and
Why don't we
meets
send
the-
it back and see what it would take for us to?
It's Rafe, did you have something to say?
Sure.
Mr. 912? Did you guys talk about this in the commission?
Good morning. Rafe Sonnenschein, Executive Director, Neighborhood Council Review Commission.
I know, that's terrible.
As Councilman Alarcon points out, separating these issues is actually more consistent with what the NCRC did. It wasn't perceived as necessarily an exchange thing. You had to do one for the other.
Right.
But it was clear that we thought that the original decision to require neighborhood councils to post at more locations, a larger number of locations than city commissions and other city agencies do, was a mistake, and that the number should be more comparable to what city agencies
Why?
do for meetings.
Why is it a mistake?
Well, what ended up happening is we found that we were actually creating grievances.
Watch out for the paparazzi.
And-
Here
and-
comes Dennis Sign. Dennis is going to need his own paparazzi-free zone after, anyway.
We found that the more procedural requirements there were, the more grievances could be generated in terms, and also with the time of volunteers, it was difficult to always get to exactly all the locations. They weren't always being used, and we ended up believing that it was one of those cases where it was an excess of good intentions at the start. The idea was, let's greatly exceed the normal requirement
Right.
because we're neighborhood councils,
Like what I-
and it was
yeah.
probably not the wisest idea. So we recommended reducing the number of posting locations,
Okay.
requiring that if a neighborhood council has a website, this is in our Sunshine Act, that it should be posted on their website, and if people request electronic notification, there should be a vehicle through the city's website to do that. And maybe Dunn should come back with an explanation for how those could be done. But the original recommendation was probably the most important, which was to reduce the number of posting locations. It seemed like the benefit of all the posting was outweighed by all the opportunities for it becoming a sort of grievance-based procedural thing for
Well, let me-
very small
Because
benefit.
were people bringing grievances
Yeah.
against the neighborhood council? How many?
Well, I don't have the, maybe
Maybe it's like a
Bangwan would
major
have that,
problem.
but.
Let me put this in a different framework. You know, as I engage in my political life, you know, we'll go to community meetings and Chamber of Commerce. People are well aware of the department, or they're well aware of the neighborhood council system. But as I engage in my personal life, going to family events and you know, playing sports activities at parks or wherever, they don't have a clue about the neighborhood council system.
true.
That's true.
They just don't know.
That's true.
And I'm thinking that one of the reasons is that we don't feature it as much as we feature the city council on Channel 35. Now, one of the ways to do that is to get their agendas out so that people say, well, what is this agenda? What is this thing? So that I think more people. Now, I know that the people who tend to look at the website would be the people who already know about it. But it just seems to me we should do everything at every level to try and inform people more about the neighborhood council system so that they can participate. Because when you look at the numbers of people that vote in these neighborhood council elections, it palls next to the number of people that vote in city council elections, and that's miserable.
But
Really.
And I think,
It's
So
like
huge.
It's like a tenth of we're at about, we're averaging less than 10% in many districts. I think it was the average in the average
6%,
it's
yeah.
6%, but the average was much lower in those districts that didn't have a council election. So, and then when you think that the neighborhood council elections are even a fraction of that, I mean, come on, we're not even penetrating 1% of the population.
it would be my experience, I think that's exactly right. I think posting is a pretty weak read for reaching the goal that you're talking about. I think what you're talking about is
that's the
real,
question.
genuine outreach, both by the city, especially through the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, other city agencies, inserts that go out in the mail with material from the city.
You know
For
what?
example,
Yeah,
one
sure.
thing we ought to be
Vastly
doing,
outweigh
one thing
what
we ought to be
posting
doing,
would
and nobody's ever talked about it, is inserting neighborhood councils into the government classes at all the high schools in Los Angeles.
I think it's a great idea.
Why? I mean, they got to learn government.
And I think you made a good point about Channel 35. A lot of people watch Channel 35,
Yeah, let's
which
recommend
is
it.
always surprising to me when people come up to me and say,
true.
I saw you on Channel 35. I think we should do a better job on 35. But again, let's get back to, if there's an issue in your neighborhood, you will show up at your neighborhood council.
Correct.
I mean, that's really what it's all about. I mean, look, people are busy. People have 2 jobs. They got a family. They've already got, kid activities going on. It's, unless there's a real issue that will bring someone out of their home on a Monday night, at 7 o'clock in the local gym, they're not going to probably be regular attendees to neighborhood councils. We just had an issue in San Pedro that was about, a dense condo development. The Coastal Neighborhood Council saw 200 people show up at their neighborhood council. It was the most they'd ever seen because it was an issue that they cared about and they wanted to get involved. It gave them a reason to get involved in democracy. Again, there's nothing.
So we need more controversy.
There's nothing like an issue. Neighborhood councils I think, in my opinion, are always going to be issue driven. If there's an issue that really all of a sudden impacts their neighborhood, they're going to come to the neighborhood council if they know about the neighborhood council and see what could be done. to persuade those of us who are making the decisions to make the right one.
And I think that's going to be a much better driver for getting attention for neighborhood
I
councils
do
than
too.
post.
Or maybe the
meeting
neighborhood
postings.
council should
Yeah.
just recognize celebrities every Friday, and then they would get more attention. That's a whole other.
Don't ask us for a report back on that, Richard.
The,
Okay,
so
it's gonna come back.
I do think I would like. I think the broader question is, what
Agreed.
can we do to provide greater information about the neighborhood councils
Right.
to the community?
That's right.
I
But
think the
you would
spirit
like-
of
you, but your recommendation is 5 is too many. Is 4 appropriate? 3?
Whatever is comparable, what our recommendation was to be comparable with what the normal city requirements
Ours
are.
is 2.
Which is 2, I believe. Is that?
2. It's 1. It's 1. I thought it was 2.
we're going backwards here. I don't even.
But to
like this
encourage
discussion.
as much electronic notification as possible, but
We should
we
make
didn't
that
recommend mandating it, but that's something that could be, you'd have to get a
Have we ever
report
done a
back on.
survey of neighborhoods asking people what, it seems like we're doing this from the wrong end. Why don't we survey, what does a neighborhood council survey their neighborhood and find out what works for that particular constituency? Is it online? Is it Starbucks?
Well,
What's
the
best
NCRC
way?
actually conducted a very comprehensive survey of board members and stakeholders and asked them, what does it take to get your attention for neighborhood councils? So there is a current
The
survey.
board members is vastly different.
We also
Yeah.
did a survey of the
And
general
stakeholders.
public as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a whole mixture, and I think what you're getting at, though, you're exactly on the right path, which is it's multiple ways of reaching people. Because there's no single way that reaches everybody, but the more you can multiply electronic, getting people on email lists, posting is probably the weakest of all. The main advantage of posting, I think, is that if you don't do it, it gives somebody a chance to file a grievance. The difference between 2 and 5 isn't even close to, say, what Councilman Alarcon's idea of letting the high schools know about it and really getting out there
Well,
would
no,
have
I'm
so
gonna-
much bigger impact.
Yeah, I'm
would
going to
be
introduce
so much broader.
a motion to call for a resolution by the city to ask the legislature to require, X amount of training on neighborhood councils in LA Unified and at the community college district level. And I'm sure it can be inserted in their current government programs. I just don't think they're focused on it. I don't think the political scientists at Mission College or any of the 9 community colleges are even thinking about it. Not to mention the universities. There may be 1 or 2 professors out there who are focused on it somewhat. At least 1 in the room, but it's not systemic.
And he has a beard.
Honor them on Friday.
we'll honor them on Friday.
But again, I mean,
So I-
the
so I'll-
but
let's see if we
the
can
neighborhood
stimulate.
councils that have a slot for youth, okay, that neighborhood council is going to have much more awareness in the high school community. A neighborhood council that has no room for a young person on their board, you can kind of do all you want in the high school, and the kids are going to go, why should I get involved in this neighborhood council? There's no way.
Well, I'm not asking them to get involved. I'm asking them to learn about our government. I mean, it's part of
Yeah, but you
government
can't
training.
learn about them until you get involved. I think all neighborhood councils should have a slot on their board.
I was
for-
very involved in the
for young
anti-Vietnam movement before I had the right to vote. I mean, there's a lot of things you can get involved with. You can go to the neighborhood council and complain about the graffiti at the local park. There's a lot of things that kids can do. In fact, a lot of the high school students are involved with the neighborhood councils and doing projects like that. The question is just as a government teacher, it just seems to me that we've forgotten to create that level of inculcation in our government courses in high schools, and it just dawned on me as we're having this discussion, we ought to do that. But that's a different issue. So on this issue, let's ask for, if you can come back to tell us what it would take to encourage and get neighborhood council. We'll use this motion as the vehicle to encourage neighborhood councils to post their agendas on the citywide website.
Councilman, can I offer another suggestion? That we are going to report back to the committee on Dunn's new role when we get out of the elections business, emphasizing outreach. That if we could include this in that report, because we want to come back to you and show you and outline to you our plans
That's
to
fine
raise
with
the
me.
visibility of neighborhood council system.
Can
we
we
could do
attach
that.
this file to that motion, or do we just receive and file this
It's an
motion?
NCRC recommendation.
What's your pleasure, committee?
Just hold this committee until such time that they come back, and then we can just fill it in at that time.
Do you concur, Darrell?
Shouting to the audience.
Yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, I do. I can.
Okay, we will do just that. Thank you. We have two cards on this. Mr. McQuiston, and then Joseph Reiser.
Jim McQuiston. I put in a statement, a short statement. I hope you've all had a chance to read it. I've had some difficulty with the clerk getting the statements to you and my getting agendas, even though I have put in a Brown Act request for the agendas and I didn't get it. But let's go on with this. The focus in the charter, as two of your members well know, was not really to hide behind the Brown Act, but to get people involved. We had to communicate to every stakeholder and get every stakeholder at least a chance to get involved. In East Hollywood, we have stakeholders who are owners of our property, and the majority of our owners do not live in the neighborhood. They live in Boston. Some of them live in Australia, but they have a stake in our neighborhood. And those people are never being notified about anything that the neighborhood council is doing. And I don't know if any of those people ever look at the LA City website. We didn't satisfy the charter by doing this, even notifying in 5 locations. As Ms. Hahn has said many times, she doesn't even know where the postings were in her area. So how is she going to take the time to go look?
So
If you don't have money, as Mr. Alicon has said, if you don't have money, or maybe you don't even have electricity because you live on the street, how are you going to find out from the website what is going on in the neighborhood council? And yet you're a resident in that area, and you're certainly a stakeholder. So it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Mr. McQuiston, what would satisfy?
What is satisfying, I have actually put in as a consultant, I put in an elaborate reorganization of that particular enabling ordinance, which does satisfy the charter. It's more than just picking here, there, and the other place. As I said in my statement, it's a major overhaul is required. We just heard a person talking who's going to be on the bonk who really hasn't gone to any bonk meetings.
Have you provided that to Dunn?
I have provided it to Dunn.
Okay, then
I have
then
provided
Dunn will
it to many
incorporate that
of the
into
members on here.
into their report. I'd appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Well, I imagine all of our commissioners that we've ever appointed probably never went to the meeting of the commission that they're getting appointed to.
I must say, too, I was never asked by the NCRC what my opinions were for the Charter Revision Committee. I was never solicited, never. You would think maybe they would have done that.
Or maybe we know your opinions by now.
Mr. Reiser.
Thank you. My comments were aimed at the way you started the conversation. So they may not be perfect for where you ended up with the conversation, but I'll try and amend them as I go. I'm a neighborhood council board member in one of the Northeast area neighborhood councils, and I think what was suggested is a good step, and I think it was aimed at reducing neighborhood council representative workloads and actually reducing redundancy in some cases. But I think even more, you have an opportunity here to take this a little broader, open the box up a little bit, and make the city website a single stop for all digital information regarding neighborhood councils. If the IT people who are going to be processing these documents, converting them for web, converting them for email, are going to be doing that, why not take it to the next step and have the city host all neighborhood council websites in a uniform place, in a uniform way, so that people know where to find them and come to them, and have them processed for all those purposes. A quick search shows that neighborhood councils around the city are paying anywhere from zero, if they have people or volunteers that can do this for them, to a couple $1,000s a year, to upwards of $6,000 or $7,000 a year, $600 or $700 a month to just maintain a website that keeps their documents. And then you have the situation with the dozens of neighborhood councils that don't have any web presence. You have the digital divide that we talk about a lot. You could be saving this, especially as budget times are now, you could be saving these neighborhood councils thousands of dollars a year if all of that was in one location, if it met a template, if the 80 to 90 neighborhood councils were paying $100 a month, $150 a month for the upkeep to get all their stuff on there, then you wouldn't have this redundancy as well. I realized this when our Dunn representative asked us for the names of the board members to put up on their site. Well, we'd put that up on our site as well, and we were handing it two directions at the same time for processing by two different people.
So we might see, for example, Dunn could do an RFP soliciting a consultant after getting a number of neighborhood councils to say that they'd be willing to pay $100 or
I think
X amount of dollars.
I think you already have the template. There's one. There's a picture of a guy on there who's on the city council. This very same template could be used for every neighborhood council. A lot of these same areas are what neighborhood councils post on their websites. In fact, a lot of what neighborhood councils post on their websites, you already post on the
That's
city
what
site.
$100 will get you.
Well, that's all. And for some neighborhood councils, that might be all they need. If they want to pay twice as much, they're still saving thousands of dollars in some cases. But it's there. The same way that people call 311 now because they know that's all city services, why not have them go to lacity.org for all city neighborhood council websites? Have them all linked there. A lot of the information's up there already.
Right, good idea.
I think what
Good idea.
what we need to recognize is that with the $50,000 that the neighborhood councils have, it might be valuable for each of them to say, well, it'd be worth it to me to pay some consultant $100 to put maybe not just agenda items, but a whole bunch of other stuff on, and it's their responsibility to get them to the consultant. But assuming the consultant does a good job, all this stuff will be on the web. So you might want to explore that, Mr. Kim, in terms of doing an RFP. It wouldn't cost Dunn anything except the cost or the administrative to do the RFP.
Well, the one
and the neighborhood councils could choose whether to participate or not. But in any case, if half of them chose to do it, they'd probably create a very decent website, and it would be private. In other words, it would be done in accordance to their measure.
What I had in mind really more was that a dedicated person here at the city, with that 100 to 150, even if only half the neighborhood councils took part, you could have a dedicated person right here in the IT department doing nothing but neighborhood council updates. And they would be doing them on the same kind of site for every neighborhood council. If the neighborhood councils wanted to spend another $5,000 to have their own, that's fine, they could be linked together. But you'd find them all here.
We should explore we should explore both options, because I can think of a lot of arguments why the neighborhood councils wouldn't want a city employee to do it. But in any case, okay, let's move on. That item will hold in abeyance until we get the full report from Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Okay, item number 3.
Item number 3 is the city clerk report in response to a motion of Han Garcetti relative to the status of the Translation Service Coordination Unit and its capacity to serve both the council and neighborhood councils, and resources required to translate all council agendas into languages other than English, beginning with Spanish, and the Neighborhood Council Review Commission recommendation number 72 regarding providing city translation services to neighborhood councils at no cost.
Karen Kalfayan, the interim city clerk. Before you, we have our two different requests, and we have one report addressing both of them. The first is Councilmember Han's motion to give a status of our translation coordination unit. So just briefly, I'll run through that. That unit was established several years ago. We have 3 staff assigned to it, and they were tasked with three things. One thing was to establish contracts with translation services agencies. We've done that. We currently have 3. The third one was just negotiated and executed in the last week, and those are available citywide. Dunn also has contracts for translation services and and we can work with departments who are needing those and connect them with them. It's done on a reimbursement basis. And then we also provide Spanish translation at and interpretation services at all city council meetings. All those meetings have an interpreter there. And other languages and assistance at committee meetings is available upon request. All anyone has to do is contact our office, and we'll arrange for an interpreter to be there, and that's not only in Spanish, that's in other languages as well. Then we've also arranged for translation equipment. That was done a number of years ago, and that's purchased and available so that people can have the headsets during meetings and listen in. And then we've also established a bilingual city employees program these are people who are already bilingual bonused staff. We have a database with them listed in the languages that they provide. They're available at off hours, and when there's a need, a department can look at the database, which is available on our website, contact somebody, and make those arrangements. The way that works is our office pays them, and then departments who use their services reimburse us for those services. So that's the status of the translation unit, and then the other. I'll come back to one other thing, but the NCRC had a recommendation to provide translation services to neighborhood councils on a no-cost basis. And this is certainly something that can be done, but it really is a budgetary issue. Mm-hmm. And that's something that can be centralized in our office. We can coordinate that. Dunn can coordinate it, but really it comes down to what resources are going to be available for that. And that's something that probably should be discussed in the context of the budget this year, as to whether those funds are going to be provided and to what extent. And then the third thing that I wanted to mention is the cost of translating city council agendas into Spanish and other languages. Currently, of course, they're all in English. Again, this is something that's going to come down to resources. It's something that can be done. The one concern that I would have on translating the agendas is just the timeliness of them. Every one of them that we would do would have to be done on a rush basis because of the 72. We have the agendas. We have to turn them around very quickly. I'd be concerned about just once they're translated, are they going to be done in time for them to be of any use? But what we can do in the meantime, and again, it's resources that could be used there. But what we can do in the meantime, and what we're suggesting now, is on the city council agendas, we do have something at the bottom of the first page that says that we have assisted listening devices and that translation services are available. What we can do is arrange to put that in different languages so it's here so that people can see that. They can contact us. We have folks on our staff who can assist in Spanish right now, and we can probably make arrangements or look into language lines and so on if people want to call in and get some assistance. So there are some things that we can do at least in the meantime.
The recommendation is to move these items forward.
I have a question regarding these language lines. Police department, fire department, other departments, do we have one central language line, or do we have a variety in different costs, or have we ever reviewed that?
I don't know if there are a number of different ones. We use them in elections. During elections years, we have people who can call in and get assistance in a language. And so I don't know if what we use is the same as what police uses and others, but it's something we can certainly look at.
Because we could maybe save some money if we consolidate that into one contract instead of multiple contracts. Because I heard that those contracts are very expensive. You charge by the minute.
My understanding of the police department, for example, is that they're not paying for translation services. They're paying for a skilled employee to have a language ability. So it's different.
Well, like fire department, they call 911. The fire department.
They don't get a translator. They get somebody who's a skilled dispatcher.
That's
but they happen to speak a different language.
But if they don't have an individual who speaks Japanese at the fire dispatch, they have a connection with some company.
Right, they can call and get the similar kind of a service in another language. But you're right. It's not a translation. It's somebody who can assist in that language. Somebody who speaks that language.
I know those are contracts. I'm just concerned when you bring this up, how much we're spending, and if we can consolidate that with one company instead of having the multiple different layers.
Yeah, and I don't have that information.
Okay, well, I'll look into that. Okay. just a way to try and save some more money if we could.
Yeah, I mean, why
Vendors versus
couldn't general service centralize all these services? Because almost all the departments use them.
Yeah, and it's, we can look at that also in the context of what we use for elections.
In any case, the recommendation is to send this to Budget and Finance to further analyze it, because obviously it's an issue of cost and resources, as you said. And
Council, can I ask a question of Karen? Would it be at this point that we would include a recommendation also to instruct the CEO to report back during the council deliberations on the 2008-09 budget process on this?
If it's, I think it's appropriate to look at this in the context of the budget.
that's what I thought I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
Pretty smart, though.
Okay.
He translated it.
Okay.
Then that would be the order, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 4.
Number 4.
A motion of Han Gruel relative to requesting Dunn, the mayor, and the Department of Transportation to explain their reason for not finalizing a near-completed MOU between the Department of Transportation and 4 neighborhood councils selected by the Neighborhood Participation Project.
Morning, Rita Robinson,
Rita.
General Manager, Department of Transportation. Here with Mr. Kim. We weren't.
Okay, can I clarify on the previous item? I'm
Yes.
going to read this into the record so the city clerk knows exactly. But I think what you said is a little bit different than what I have before me. So that is that I move the item to council with the recommendation to approve the city clerk's recommendations and request the council president forward the item to Budget and Finance Committee for further fiscal impact analysis. I believe the clerk's recommendations include an analysis of the 2008-2009 budget.
Okay. We're in agreement.
Okay.
Thank
That
you.
was the order. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry.
Morning.
Ms. Robinson.
Morning, everyone. We reviewed the motion that was passed in December 2006, and talking with staff regarding the process at that point. There are no individuals that are there now or aware of what the draft MOU was at that time. There was nothing in the file with regard to an actual MOU being drafted. Our understanding that there were individuals that had since left the department that were working with neighborhood councils regarding the possibility of an MOU and how we could more effectively reach out to the neighborhood councils. In light of that, having said that, first of all, I'd like to say that the department, as well as myself, are very committed to working with neighborhood councils, and since taking the position in transportation, and even prior to my experience in sanitation and other departments, I've actively participated with requests from neighborhood councils for interaction and information. And in that light, as we were thinking about your request with regard to an MOU, how we could more effectively reach out to neighborhood councils and effectively meet some of the concerns they have regarding transportation issues, especially. And in my experience in sanitation, where we've had such a great response from neighborhood councils assisting us in how we have crafted the road that we're now taking on zero waste and how we're looking at landfills and other issues regarding the city. I took a little bit of that experience and began to work with neighborhood councils on transportation issues, which are also near and dear to communities. And in that, with your challenges to the department that we discussed linking with planning, the issues of planning and transportation being, almost hooked at the hip. And those are the issues that are very important to the community. So what we did was go back and research what we didn't know and what we did know. And one of the things that we knew is that planning has a pilot project that they're working with neighborhood councils on how to make sure their plans get out to communities at the beginning.
Okay, I'm going to have to reduce this discussion. We have council in 10 minutes. I have three items left. The bottom line is, are you going to establish an MOU project?
We're not going to establish an MOU.
If I can finish my question. Are you going to create an MOU project with the neighborhood council system? This one specifically talks about USC area, but do we have any kind of MOU model from the Department of Transportation with the neighborhood council system?
Not an MOU, but a relationship where what our plan is to link with planning and their pilot project, which is not an MOU,
What happened
but a
to this
procedure.
agreement? I can't believe this agreement is not around somewhere. I mean, this was negotiated with DOT, with neighborhood councils, with the USC neighborhood participate. Where is it?
We don't know where it is. That
Did I
was
tell you
two
about the
general
three
managers
envelopes?
ago. Pardon?
Did I tell you about the 3 envelopes?
No.
Anyway, the first envelope is blame it on the last guy, and but we don't want to get to the second envelope or the third envelope. So the bottom line is, we'd like to know what happened to the MOU, and
Yeah.
and we are still under
You
a
have it?
mandate. I believe the department's still under a mandate to produce that MOU.
We will try to produce the MOU that we don't know existed. However, what we understand were there were discussions that had taken place, but nothing in writing that we're aware of. However, what we want to do is link with planning's plan to be able to put transportation and planning issues before all the neighborhood councils and be able to piggyback with their process.
Rita, you're deflecting the specific issue for the broad issue. There is no broad issue here. This is a very specific issue. There was an MOU that was supposed to be done that wasn't done. That's all we're asking. We're not asking about the other. I encourage you to continue with those other discussions, but we're asking about that MOU.
I will try to investigate where it is.
Somebody
I have
should
no
call
idea.
Dr. Cooper at USC, apparently.
Okay, I'll call Dr. Cooper.
That's all we want to know.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 5.
What's the disposition of this item? Are we continuing it or holding in committee?
We're going to hold it in committee and come back in 30 days.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Item number 5, motion Han Gruel relative to requesting the Neighborhood Council Review Commission to discuss the idea of requiring all Neighborhood Council board members to be given training on sexual harassment at regular intervals.
The recommendation here is to instruct Dunn to come back in 30 days on the feasibility of providing sexual harassment training to neighborhood council board members and include the fiscal impacts of providing such training. Does anybody have a problem with that?
What is a regular interview?
Pardon me?
Regular interval, how long is, what's the time frame? Every 6 weeks, every year? Regular intervals, there's an
twice a year.
expense involved in that program. Right?
I think we were talking bi-yearly.
Every 6 months?
Well, no, bi-yearly would be every other
Every
year.
other year.
Okay, just take 1 second. I know you're so short
Absolutely.
of time. Rafe Sonnenschein, Neighborhood Council Review Commission. Just noticing a couple of things about the motion. One is that the NCRC doesn't actually exist at this time to take up the request here, to take it up as a body. So it would have to be, the recommendation would have to be revised somewhat to refer it.
I don't see that in the recommendation.
Oh, it says relative to requesting the Neighborhood Council Review Commission to discuss the idea of requiring.
Oh, but that's the motion. The motion that I'm making is to ask Dunn.
Oh, okay.
Instruct Dunn to report back in 30 days. Specifically, let me just make this motion.
Aren't you always going to?
I move the CAO's recommendation to instruct Dunn to report back to the committee in 30 days on the feasibility of providing sexual harassment training to the neighborhood council members on a bi-yearly basis and include the fiscal impacts of such training requirements.
I just want to make one wording suggestion on this, because this could become one of these very large unfunded mandates that weighs heavily on Dunn and other city departments, is the use of the word neighborhood council board members as opposed to neighborhood council boards. And my experience is that tracking down all the members of all the boards of neighborhood councils will probably take the entire year in which the training is supposed to be going on. But to make the boards aware could also be done at meetings of neighborhood council boards. But anyway, getting it down to the individual board member as a requirement is going to be.
I don't know that that's implicit in the language used. I think that I think that Dunn should consider your concern when it reports back to us in 30 days.
Okay.
Basically, we want to get as many members trained as possible who are board members.
But not required.
Well, we'd like for everybody to go through it, but this is a voluntary process, and
Have there been problems?
What's that?
Have there been problems in this particular subject matter to bring about this request?
I would defer to John.
I think at the time that the motion came up, it surfaced as an issue. We don't track incidences of sexual harassment in the department, but I have no doubt that neighborhood councils are a reflection of society and that it would come up.
As a former legislator, we would get annual training in sexual harassment, and every single year, we would learn something new. And I can't imagine in a system of 2,000 people that there are things that go on out there that they should be informed about that could have ramifications from the perspective of sexual harassment. And so we don't know of a glaring problem, but we can anticipate with that many people, we could have problems.
Would liability then be with the city because the neighborhood council is under the city umbrella?
Very possibly, because they are part of the city system. So in terms of risk analysis and reducing risk of liability, it's probably a good idea.
And it certainly would be increased if we did nothing.
Arguably.
At least for some defense if they're trained for the city.
We tried.
Okay.
We could come back to the committee in 30 days on a report on available resources for providing sexual harassment training.
Well, no. I don't think that's what I asked. The feasibility.
Feasibility.
So it includes what you might want to, whether or not we can, under current circumstances, and what it would take for us to provide it on a bi-yearly basis.
Exactly.
Just a suggestion, not a legal suggestion, but I think personnel does provide some electronic training that Ben might want to look into.
Oh, okay.
He's aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we're going to look.
Good.
You took that training.
Okay.
Yes, all city employees are required to take that training.
Wait.
You took it?
Item number 6, CAO report in response to motion Alarcon Cardenas relative to directing the CAO Dunn General Service Department to report regarding funding the cost of the use of neighborhood city halls by the bank for their bi-monthly meetings.
Good morning, Delilah Pucha, CAO. The proposal to have bunk meetings at neighborhood city halls will result in approximately $9,700 increase to Dunn's budget for GSD services. Due to the city's current financial or fiscal crisis, this proposal is not recommended at this time. To the extent possible, I would recommend that Dunn identify savings within its current budget operation to support this proposal. Recommendation would be to note and file. There is no fiscal impact.
Let me be clear. The CAO's recommendation is to not pay for this service because it costs $120 per meeting at a school. So it's not just that we don't want them to, but I think that we ought to allow neighborhood councils to pay for it if they choose, and I think they can.
They can.
They can, but
Is
we were.
this for the security officer? You said general services, or is it just use the facility?
It's for GSD has certain requirements when it results in security officers, staff to stay there still until it closes.
Oh, we're talking about bonk. I'm sorry.
Yes. So GSD has certain requirements for when they're held at neighborhood city halls versus LA Unified School District. They don't have requirements from GSD.
Hey, what if they do the bonk meetings during the day, like at the Van Nuys City Hall or some other city hall where they already have general services security on duty? There's no additional cost, they're already there.
The bank felt pretty strongly that in order to neighborhood councils to attend meetings, they wanted to hold them in the evenings.
Right.
That's the issue.
And this also includes
We're talking
parking.
about a group that hasn't had a quorum in the last 3 or 4 meetings, so they can't even make their meetings. And those were scheduled in the evening.
All evening meetings,
But the
yes.
security officer would be there.
Security officer
Getting
was
paid
there.
to protect no one.
Security officer was there.
Well, we tried.
And the bank doesn't have an issue with going to schools for meetings as a cost-saving measure. I think the idea was to try to establish standing meeting locations at city facilities, but given the cost constraints, the bank is willing to go to LAUSD facilities.
So I recommend we receive and file this motion. If there's no objection, that will be the order. We are on time for council, so we're going to adjourn this meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, we have public comment? I will stay if you want to go down to council.
This is my favorite part, is public comment.
It'll be short.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you.
I get inspired by public comment.
Yes, we're here to inspire you. We're also here to challenge you, and we also challenge you honestly, on this educational issue, your motion, it's now a year since I challenged you, if you remember. We had a little tete-a-tete, and frankly, you lost, because I said if we're not able to move forward on that motion, then respectfully, we're on the failure side as opposed to the success side. Honestly, you guys...
Why don't you tell the listening audience what you're talking about?
Well, we're talking about the...
And identify your name, please.
Thank you. Noel Weiss is my name. Thank you. What I'm talking about is the motion that was introduced by Councilman Alarcon to create a Department of Education, City Department of Education. This motion is, what we obviously need to do is talk about and debate the role of the city in the providing of educational services. Can we do it? The mayor's trying to do something right now. There's a serious question as to what the mayor's doing is even legal, okay? Because you have a Court of Appeal decision. But the bottom line is we got to have a debate, because if the city doesn't want to do it, fair enough. But I think, again, we're talking about neighborhood council, we're talking about debate, discussion. Out of that debate and discussion, I think can form a consensus so we know basically where we're going, how we're going to get there, who gets what and why, what are we doing and why. He's not even listening to me. Council member, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Mr. Zine. The bottom line is, seriously, there are a number of great alternatives where this can be done legally, can be done lawfully. We got to engage the people. You're talking about engaging neighborhood councils. You got to come through for me on this. You basically, I think, I don't know whether maybe it's a fear of intimacy. I mean, maybe we got to, the urge to merge. We got to get intimate with these ideas. Okay,
we have no fear of intimacy.
but we got to hug them. We got to cuddle them. We got to basically make it happen. I'm just talking about the debate. Okay. All right.
Can we stay on this item?
Yes. To tie everything down. No, seriously. I want to encourage you. I want to again challenge you. Okay. We need because there's some really good alternatives that we need to basically get debated here. Okay. That other council members may want to bring up in response, and part of that I think will facilitate.
Can I say something quickly, council member? Darrell Powell with the CLA's office. We're working diligently on this project. As you're talking here, we have met with LAUSD. We're looking at a prior report that we put together where we look to see where LAUSD is in terms of reporting back on the commission's recommendations at the direction of Councilmember Alarcon, and we'll be pulling from that report where they are with various recommendations, what that office is going to look like, and what issues are going to be involved with.
There you go.
So he's looking at, and he's also scheduled a meeting. I don't recall the date, but
May 13th.
May 15th.
May 15th? Or we're going to hear it May 15th?
13th.
May 13th. Awesome.
We're going to have a meeting on the Department of Education, LAUSD governance.
No fear of intimacy there.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. That's all I ask.
Mr. McQuiston.
Jim McQuiston. I'm on the sidewalk task force.
Thank you.
What's that?
The idea is the city's spending $20 million now out of its general funds, which the state Supreme Court has already said in 1902 that the city may not do so. And our sidewalks are in 83 years worth of repairs right now. After 35 years, another 35 years, and it'll be 166 years of sidewalks needing repairs. And the reason is that we have a generation has gone by when people have not been told that it's their duty, their responsibility to get their sidewalks in good repair. And one of the suggestions that we've made in the committee is that the neighborhood councils are a good vehicle for passing the word along to people. And that is something which this committee supposedly has been diverted on the point of sale issue that was raised in the city council, partly from Mr. I'm sorry, my mind is going haywire. At any rate, I have put in a request to the clerk that you take up this matter, because I think it's important that the Education and Neighborhoods Committee, according to Mr. Bong, is supposed to take it up, and I think it should be on the agenda to take a look at, because we do have to get this neighborhood council system to doing what they're supposed to be doing, monitoring the delivery of city services. And one of the monitoring things is to check your sidewalks and report where there's problems with
I
the
don't know
sidewalks.
that the issue, Mr. McQuiston, is that we don't know where the cracked sidewalks are.
It is. It is. Believe me.
Department of Public Works knows where the cracked
No,
sidewalks are.
they do not.
Well, we.
But
The question is, they're not fixing them even if they know where they are.
They're not fixing them because the city does not have the funds to fix them. But when they go out to look at one reported sidewalk, they find maybe the whole block needs fixing rather than just the one property. The city right now does not know the exact extent of the sidewalk repairs. And according to the state law, the Streets and Highways Act of 1911, if the city is put on notice and doesn't do something about that, namely getting the property owners to fix the sidewalks, then if there's an accident on the sidewalk, the city is liable. So we're taking a very large risk management in not informing people to fix their sidewalks when they need repair.
I agree, and I think.
Gotta go, I'm being arrested.
Yeah, I think that the fact is we're not taking a risk. We are paying the price already.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's.
And we need to get neighborhood councils through the bonk and through the done to
Let me
notify.
think about, Jim, let me think about that
Okay,
one because I know that Mr. Rosendahl is doing some things in Public Works.
Supposedly, it's a joint referral.
There's an item.
That was what we were told in the sidewalk committee by the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment.
That's coming to us.
And
We're not aware of that. If you could,
I know nothing more than that, but it
Maybe we
has
have a joint
devolved.
meeting.
It has devolved to we have to get the neighborhood councils involved, and that has been the focus of our sidewalk committee. Bill Robertson is now going out to supposedly assemblies of neighborhood councils,
yeah.
but this is more or less informally. We really need the department to pass the word out so that the people know the extent. No one really knows that they're responsible anymore because of the
Believe me,
1973.
there isn't a council member who doesn't know that because every community meeting we go to, somebody raises the issue. And
They think the
when we
city
tell
is
them-
supposed to do it.
Absolutely, and when we tell them
Right.
that we aren't responsible, we actually, the city does actually, typically through community development block grants, pay for a lot of sidewalk improvements, which actually creates this sentiment in the public that the city will pay for, and it's sort of a
Yes.
catch-22 situation.
Well, in our budget
But I'm
process,
happy to explore it. I have to get
yeah,
to city council. So
we
I'm
have
happy
to get this word out.
Okay, I'll be happy if you could work with my staff to figure out where that item is. I'd
Okay.
appreciate it.
Sure.
With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.